Coming up on Arirang News. Medical professors affiliated with one of South Korea's major hospitals have walked out indefinitely from today. More than half of professors of medicine in the country are to reportedly join the collective action. While Russian President Vladimir Putin is visiting Pyongyang tomorrow, which may boost Russia-North Korea military cooperation, Chinese officials are coming to South Korea on the same day for diplomatic security talks, the first such meeting in 9 years. The government is set to launch visa measures and simplify entry procedures for those enthusiastic about South Korean culture and wishing to experience and learn about K-pop, choreography, and more. Good evening, it's 9 p.m. here in Seoul. Thank you for joining us on Arirang News. We begin with the ongoing medical dispute here in the country. From today on, medical professors at one of Korea's major hospitals are going on an indefinite walkout, just a day ahead of a walkout organized by the nation's largest doctors group. There are mounting concerns as about half of the country's medical professors are likely to join the collective action. Our Kim Bo-kyung starts us off.
Concerns over disruptions in the country's medical system are worsening after professors of medicine at one of the so-called Big Five major hospitals here began an indefinite walkout on Monday.
Medical professors at hospitals affiliated with Seoul National University have launched an indefinite walkout. A total of 529 professors at 4 hospitals are reportedly going to join the collective action. This is about 55% of the total.
Essential care, including emergency rooms, intensive care units, and delivery rooms, will continue to operate. But with professors from all 20 clinical departments at the hospital joining the walkout, outpatient treatments and surgeries have inevitably been affected, being reduced by around 40%. While saying the collapse of the medical system has already begun, the SNU's Emergency Committee demanded the government to fully scrap all administrative orders issued against trainee doctors who walked off their jobs in February. It also added it would be willing to end the walkout and engage in dialogue, but only if the government readjusts the new medical school quota for next year. Amid the prolonged medical standoff, patients have to be worried.
I have a cyst on my gallbladder, and this could develop into cancer. Later on, if the size has turned out to have increased, I would have to have surgery, but I'm worried I won't be able to get it.
I have come for dialysis, and I'm worried it could be halted.
The professors' walkout comes one day before a nationwide strike of community doctors slated for Tuesday, organized by the country's biggest doctors group, the Korean Medical Association. The collective action is expected to expand, as medical professors at 3 hospitals affiliated with Yonsei University also plan to halt most services beginning June 27th. Though the doctors' pressure is getting stronger, the government is still firm on the issue. President Yoon urged officials to thoroughly prepare emergency measures to cope with the collective action, calling it an illegal rejection of their work duties. The government previously urged hospitals to request a review of their compensation claims if they suffer losses due to the prolonged crisis. Kim Bo-kyung, Arirang News.
Shifting gears, President Yoon returned from his 3-nation tour of Central Asia over the weekend as he set out his K-Silk Road Initiative, Korea's first strategy to increase cooperation with the region. Our correspondent Oh Soo-young fills us in on the major outcomes.
Forming trust and tailored partnerships are key to Seoul's journey to becoming a global pivotal state. That's according to experts speaking to Arirang News, following President Yoon Suk-yeol's 3-country tour of Central Asia last week. Throughout Yoon's week-long trip, Korea landed significant deals on transport, energy and infrastructure in all 3 countries, such as working on Turkmenistan's gas processing facility, smart cities in Kazakhstan, and Korea's first export of its high-speed rail system in Uzbekistan. Another major achievement was establishing critical mineral partnerships with Kazakhstan and Uzbekistan as South Korea's semiconductor and battery industries rely on a stable supply of rare minerals like nickel, lithium, and tungsten. Seoul also secured stable supplies of crude oil and uranium for nuclear energy from Kazakhstan. Beyond economic security, Yoon's office says Korea's basic resource cooperation has evolved into a sustainable strategic partnership. In this regard, key deals were signed on climate action, loans and assistance for development projects, agricultural technology for food security, research and development in cutting-edge fields, along with vocational training and support for young innovators.
You can see Central Asia has a complementary industrial structure to Korea's. They have a vast population, while we are underpopulated with a growing shortage of economically active people. Thus, if Korean firms establish themselves in the region early, then they can build up a sales market and procure highly skilled human resources, especially in the sciences.
Central Asia's strategic importance has grown as a geographical bridge between Asia and Europe, particularly following Russia's invasion of Ukraine, with major powers vying for access to key resources and the so-called Middle Corridor trade route. South Korea's approach stands out with its pragmatic diplomacy and soft power, given its own developmental experience.
Central Asian countries see collaboration with Korea to be more fitting to tailor to their needs than other countries. For example, powerful state Western countries, they have the latest technology, which is universal, but Korea has, including those technologies, also conventional technologies and various technologies and know-how at various levels that can better fit these countries. And it's more in the same context that can be very relevant.
The leaders of all three countries expressed support for Yoon's K-Silk Road initiative, which aims to bolster cooperation in resources, development and culture with 5 Central Asian countries, including Kyrgyzstan and Tajikistan. They also joined South Korea in calling for the complete denuclearization of North Korea. Yoon plans to hold a Korea-Central Asia summit in Seoul next year. Asiana Airlines News.
It's a crucial week for diplomacy here on the peninsula. While Russian President Vladimir Putin heads to Pyongyang, senior Chinese officials will be arriving in Seoul tomorrow for diplomatic security talks. This is the first time in 9 years that such a meeting is being held amid a complicated Seoul-Beijing relationship. Our foreign affairs correspondent Eun-ji explains.
This week is set to be a busy one of diplomacy on the Korean peninsula. South Korea and China are scheduled to hold high-level talks between their foreign and defense officials on Tuesday, the same day that Russian President Vladimir Putin will likely visit Pyongyang. South Korea's foreign ministry announced Monday that the 2+2 meeting set to take place in Seoul will be led by Vice Foreign Minister Kim Yoon and his Chinese counterpart Sun Weidong. Defense officials at the Director General level from the two countries will also be joining the meeting. The two countries agreed to hold such talks last month when President Yoon Suk-yeol sat down for a separate bilateral meeting with Chinese Premier Li Chang on the sidelines of the trilateral summit with Japan. The dialogue was first established in June 2013 and was held that year and in 2015 between Director General level officials. The meeting has not taken place since then, amid strained bilateral relations, after South Korea agreed to deploy a U.S. missile defense shield called the THAAD system. During Tuesday's meeting, the two sides will likely discuss the recent situation on the Korean peninsula, including the North's trash balloons and the South's decision to suspend the inter-Korean military agreement. South Korea is expected to once again ask China to play a constructive role in resolving North Korean issues and highlight the importance of communication between Seoul and Beijing to maintain peace in the region. All eyes are now on whether the upcoming meeting will help resume high-level communication channels between the two countries and have China keep a distance from the trilateral partnership between North Korea, China, and Russia getting stronger. Eun-ji, Arirang News.
Russian President Vladimir Putin is paying a 2-day visit to Pyongyang starting tomorrow at North Korean leader Kim Jong-un's invitation. Eyes are on whether Moscow and Pyongyang will announce new treaties on military cooperation when Putin meets Kim Jong-un this week. Our North Korean affairs correspondent Kim Jong-sil reports.
Russian President Vladimir Putin is likely to visit North Korea on Tuesday before heading to Vietnam later in the week. The last time Putin visited Pyongyang was in July 2000, when then North Korean leader Kim Jong-il and the Russian leader announced a joint declaration on friendly cooperation. However, the treaties were largely focused on economic cooperation. 24 years have now passed, and with the war in Ukraine somehow working to close the gap between the two sides, means it's likely the leaders will announce new treaties on military cooperation and make such interactions official.
The question is, will there be a clause on automatic military intervention at an alliance level? That is, if one side gets attacked, will the other party automatically intervene with military assistance?
While it is still possible, experts say it is unlikely that the concept of automatic military intervention would be included with the ongoing war in Ukraine, as it would put too much pressure on both Moscow and Pyongyang. However, lower-level treaties on military cooperation could be included that would allow closer military consultations and, if necessary, the provision of weapons to each other. Professor Im says such a lower-level treaty would still be violating UN Security Council resolutions on Pyongyang.
As a permanent member of the UN Security Council, if Russia makes new treaties with Pyongyang on military cooperation, it would be a clear violation of the UNSC resolutions, as the core of these is to cut off the flow of funds to North Korea, to stop the North's nuclear and missile development, and to halt all cooperation that would enhance the regime's military capabilities.
He added that it's important for the South Korean government to keep a close eye on all discussions between Moscow and Pyongyang and share them transparently with the international community to prevent excessive military cooperation that violates UN Security Council resolutions. Kim Jong-sil, Arirang News.
Amid an ongoing parliamentary power struggle, National Assembly Speaker Yoon has urged the rival parties to swiftly agree on the distribution of the standing committee leadership posts. During a press conference on Monday, Woo stated that he'll ensure the June extraordinary session proceeds as scheduled. He added that in order to do so, the best approach is to allocate the 11 positions to the main opposition Democratic Party and 7 to the ruling People Power Party, and quickly finalize the organization of the committees. After the press conference, Woo met with the rival floor leaders of the PPP and the DP to further discuss the matter. Despite a 2-hour-long discussion, the two parties couldn't bridge the differences and failed to reach an agreement. The government is set to introduce pilot testing K-culture training visa for foreign nationals who wish to visit the country to learn K-pop and more. Our correspondent Lee Soo-jin has more.
South Korea is ramping up efforts to boost tourism revenue. During an economic meeting with related ministers held on Monday, the South Korean government said that it plans to introduce new visa measures and simplify entry procedures.
We will discuss ways to further boost recovery in areas related to domestic consumption, such as tourism. We will address the inconveniences that foreigners experience during the entry process and promote cultural experiences.
This comes amid the somewhat sluggish recovery in revenue from tourism. The government mostly attributed this to tourism trends changing after the COVID-19 pandemic, with there being more independent tourism than group tourism and tourists turning to immersive cultural experiences rather than shopping. The government is moving to adapt to these changing trends by pilot testing the K-culture training visa by the end of the year for foreign visitors who wish to experience and learn about K-pop, choreography, and modeling. And it's also considering implementing a region-focused digital nomad visa for areas outside the capital area. South Korea has been test operating digital nomad visas, a workation visa, since January 1st this year, which allows foreigners who work remotely to travel in the country. This new region-focused digital nomad visa is expected to include incentives for foreigners to encourage them to also visit regional areas in the nation. The government also plans to simplify entry procedures. It will implement passport optical character recognition technology that will streamline the process of personal identification and verification, as well as increase the number of people that can apply for electronic travel authorization at once from the current 50. With these new measures, the government aims to draw 30 million inbound tourists and $30 billion in tourism revenue by 2027. 이수진, Arirang News.
When you think of traveling, you might picture museums, iconic landmarks, and snapping photos. But in an era where health and wellness are among the top priorities, medical tourism is on the rise, with Korea a popular destination. Our culture correspondent Song Yoo-jin has the details.
One of the great things about traveling is that it can make you a better version of yourself. Medical tourism, where people travel abroad for medical care, does this by improving both your inner and outer well-being. Korea has become a top destination for medical tourism over the years. Data from the Health Ministry shows that Korea welcomed a record high 606,000 foreign medical tourists last year. That's more than double the number from 2022 and the highest since data collection began in 2009. The most popular departments were dermatology, plastic surgery, and internal medicine. By region, Seoul City hosted 78% of them, with 1/3 who visited in 2023 coming to one particular district.
So the Gangnam-gu district in southern Seoul, where I am right now, is renowned as the epicenter of Korea's medical tourism. And that's because it's home to countless beauty clinics, including ones that specialize in plastic surgery, dermatology, dental care, and hair restoration.
The Korea Medical Tour Promotion Association under the Culture Ministry recently held an event inviting international content creators and social media influencers to experience K-medical tourism firsthand.
I believe the key factors behind the growth of Korea's medical tourism market are the popularity of K-dramas and K-pop, which have made people want to visit Korea. Also, the country's cosmetics and healthcare markets have expanded significantly. We, as doctors, will work with these influencers to promote Korea's excellent medical services worldwide.
High-quality yet affordable services are what makes Korea's medical sector stand out.
The professional results and the doctors are really good, and also it's very, very cheap compared to other countries. I'm from Europe. The clinics there are highly expensive, so I think this is something that attracts people to the surgeries in Korea.
I would say accommodation. I think there's a lot of centers that offer multiple languages and interpreters as well.
Korea aims to host a total of 700,000 medical tourists per year by 2027. But what can be done to achieve this goal?
The global medical tourism market is expected to keep growing due to its high value. It's crucial to develop the unique advantages that only Korea can offer. The government is making continuous efforts to improve services to meet the needs of medical tourists, from their arrival to departure. We need to keep integrating medical services with tourism programs and increase support for these initiatives.
Combining medical care with travel, medical tourism offers a holistic approach to healing and well-being. Song Yoo-jin, Arirang News.
Korean Air's acquisition of Asiana Airlines is one step closer to completion, as Asiana has wrapped up the divestment of its cargo business. Korean Air held a meeting with the board of directors on Monday to select Air Incheon, a cargo airline, as the preferred bidder for Asiana's cargo division. The sales agreement will be settled next month. Selling off the cargo service was one of the EU's conditions to approve the acquisition, and the other condition being that Korean Air allows low-cost carrier T-Way to start 4 new passenger flight routes. The acquisition process has been ongoing for more than 3 years. All that's left now is for approval from the United States. The path to peace for Ukraine appears turbulent as Western leaders and their allies fail to persuade their non-aligned counterparts to endorse a joint communique. Lee Seung-jae explains.
Over 2 years since the start of the war in Ukraine, countries continue to look for a way to bring it to an end. However, at the end of the 2-day Ukraine Peace Summit held in Switzerland, a number of countries were unable to come to an agreement over the wording of a joint communique and decided not to sign it. The joint communique was signed by 80 out of 93 participating countries and 3 EU institutions, the European Parliament, the Council of the European Union, and the European Commission. Russia was not invited to the event, and China did not join despite an invitation. Among the countries that decided not to sign the joint communique were members of BRICS, including Brazil, India, South Africa, and the UAE. However, other major countries also decided to take a more neutral stance, including Mexico and Indonesia. The failure to sign comes despite the fact that the joint communique takes into account the participation of BRICS members and does not explicitly condemn Moscow for its actions. Instead, it recalls the Charter of the United Nations, reaffirming its commitment to refraining from the threat or use of force against territorial integrity or political independence of any state, adding that the principles of sovereignty, independence, and territorial integrity of all states, including Ukraine, must be respected. It also condemns any threat to use nuclear weapons, while favoring the protection of Ukrainian power plants, including Zaporizhia, which Russia currently occupies. The declaration also calls for unhindered grain exports from Ukraine, the exchange of prisoners of war, and the return of children and other civilians abducted from Ukraine to Russia. Co-host Switzerland said it's looking into a follow-up event with Russia invited to participate. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
8 Israeli soldiers were killed in an explosion on Saturday in the southern Gaza Strip's Rafah during one of the deadliest incidents for the Israel Defense Forces in the war. The Times of Israel reports that 8 soldiers of the Combat Engineering Corps' 601st Battalion died during an operation in the Gazan city. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu expressed deep sorrow, however insisted that despite the heavy and staggering cost, Israel must stick to the goals of the war. Meanwhile, thousands of Israelis gathered for a weekly anti-government demonstration in Tel Aviv on Sunday to demand the release of hostages taken by Hamas and Netanyahu's resignation.
With the strong sunshine, the temperature in Seoul rose up to 30 degrees Celsius today, and the real field temperatures were at 33 degrees. The scorching heat is expected to get even stronger. A heat wave warning was issued this morning in southeastern Gyeonggi-do, eastern Jeollanam-do, and Gyeongsang-do provinces. The daytime temperature in Seoul will soar to 33 degrees tomorrow and will rise higher than today nationwide. In addition, both UV rays and ozone levels will soar very high. Please pay more attention to UV protections, and children and older adults should refrain from outdoor activities in the middle of the day. Tomorrow morning will start off at 18 degrees in Daejeon and Gyeongju. Daily highs will move up to 31 in Busan, Daegu and Gyeongju 34 degrees. Rain is expected to begin on Jeju Island from Wednesday night and continue until Friday. That's all for Korea. Here are the weather conditions around the world.
Well, that is all for this newscast tonight. Thank you for watching. We'll be back tomorrow with the latest news. Hope everyone has a great start to the week.